Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here. Hope you're doing really well. A news show today, a rare one. We haven't actually done many news shows in recent weeks. Maybe because it's been a little bit quieter, which never seems to be the case around Stamford Bridge. But obviously we've had tons of games recently to cover. So a news show today looking at Maresca's quotes and reaction to the Mudryk situation that we'll dive into. Josh Acheampong, the big contract story that's broken about him today. And also Chelsea's style of play and why they've become a great counter-attacking team under Enzo Maresca. So please do like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts on recent Chelsea events in the comments below. Also, as I spoke about for added time yesterday, do submit your questions for the Christmas added time episode that I'm going to be recording next Monday following the Everton game. So if you want to drop your questions down below, feel free to do so and I'll snap them up and add them to the list before we record that show. Also want to say a massive thank you to the guys at Alloy Collectors. We've spoken about them this year and it feels pretty fitting. They've kindly sent me the away shirt of the metal home shirt, officially licensed product. We've spoken about them before, customizable. This is the away shirt 24-25. They know my opinions on the home shirt, not that positive this year, although Chelsea are doing quite well in it. But this away shirt, it's the white one with the orange and you can fully customizable. Maybe if you are one of these people who waits very late to get your Christmas presents, I think it'd be a really thoughtful Christmas present for a Chelsea fan in your life, whether, they could add it to their collection, put it on the shelf, put it on their desk. If you want to get it for yourself, definitely suggest it's a really thoughtful collectible and we'll figure out how to put it up on the studio. Also, just give me your opinions in the comments below who you want on the back of this, because I put Zola on the 98 shirt that's behind me and Thiago Silva at the end of last season for last season's home shirt. So most will probably say Palmer, but let me know who you think should be on the back of this one. But on top of that, because you are a listener, a viewer of Son of Chelsea, you can get 15% off at checkout using the special discount code SonOfChelsea. 15% off. So definitely take advantage of that if you want to snap up one of the metal home shirts from Alloy Collectors. So we spoke about the Mudryk story yesterday and he's been put on a provisional ban. We still await, and this has to be stressed, we still await to see clarification of the investigation from the FA. And I know I got some comments and kind of, not backlash, but kind of like people wondering why I focused so much on it when we haven't reached a conclusion. It's a big Chelsea news story, number one. He's been provisionally banned, number two. The club themselves felt it adequate to release an official statement. I don't think I was being unreasonable, as any Chelsea podcast or someone who covers Chelsea Football Club are being unreasonable by talking about that story, because it's a pretty significant story. But the club, and especially now Maresca in his pre-match press conference with Shamrock, have been very adamant in supporting Mykahilo Mudryk. Maresca said the club, coaching staff and everyone in the training ground will support him. General support, we trust him. When these kind of things happen, you need to support the player. He is a Chelsea player and is one of the players involved in the squad, so it is my duty to be in contact with him. We are all there. It is not the first time this has happened. It will happen again for different players. They know exactly what they have to do, and this is why we trust and support him. So very strong. He believes as well, he said this in the press conference, that he believes that Mudryk's Chelsea career is not necessarily over and he'll play for Chelsea again one day. Again, that's going to be defined by how the rest of this investigation goes. For Mudryk and for Chelsea, there obviously is that hope and maybe that confidence based on speaking to Mudryk, I assume, and knowing his recollection of what happened and what he believes, because he firmly denies it. He firmly denies any wrongdoing. So that's important as well. And maybe just reading up on it, The Athletic did quite good reporting on specifically these investigations and potential bans and how there are omissions for bans and getting out of a ban if, for instance, as it has been alleged, that maybe Mudryk took this substance without knowing and it wasn't known to him before taking it. So it wasn't like he intentionally knew he was taking a banned substance. So that may be a key piece of evidence in this investigation. So it doesn't surprise me the club are coming out to support the player, and that's understandable. What I just want to quickly say is, I don't think, and I spoke about this a lot in yesterday's show, I don't think it's wrong for fans from a principled stance to say if a player is found, any Chelsea player is found of wrongdoing and found they have used banned substances and found guilty of cheating, they get a multiple year ban. You're not throwing your players under the bus. You're not giving up on your players. Why does it have to be this binary thinking all the time? It's a serious story. If a player has been found guilty of taking banned substances, I don't think it's right. I mean, I just, maybe some people can do the blind propaganda thing, put the blinkers on and pretend like everything's okay and pretend that, it's not our duty as fans to talk about it because it makes the club or makes a player in the current club look poor at a moment when things are really positive. No, we can do two things at the same time. We can chew and walk at the same time. Like, you don't have to, just deny things are going on because you're scared that maybe it'll bring the mood down. I don't think it will bring the mood significantly down because, as we said yesterday, Mudryk is not like a vital player for Chelsea, but I think it's relevant to talk about it. We hope that the positive resolution will be he doesn't get a full year ban and that doesn't lead to him having to have his contract terminated or be forced out of Chelsea. Obviously for him, for the player, for Chelsea, we hope it doesn't get to that, but there is a chance it could get to that. So I just want to say that, right? We don't know the conclusion of this, but I don't think it's, productive. I'm not going to be someone who, just because a negative news story comes out about a Chelsea player or Chelsea, to hide away from it. I just don't think is an honest way of going about doing this show. I mean, maybe you disagree, but that's my thought on it. Something more positive, Josh Acheampong has now signed the long-term contract. This is from David Ornstein in The Athletic. Chelsea have ended doubts over the future of Acheampong by tying their young talent down to a new and improved contract. His previous agreement was set to expire in June 2026, but following an uncertain period, he has signed a fresh 4.5-year deal. It's great news because clearly this is a guy that internally is highly rated. We heard that consistently throughout the summer before the news broke of him being kind of sidelined completely during these negotiations. I do have nuanced views on these, the way Chelsea act about these situations. I don't like it. I don't think it's positive. And, just talking about negative stories and, if you're a club, you want to avoid those as much as possible. And I think what this did, it created an unnecessary negative headline when negotiations could have kept on going on. Maybe Acheampong could have started a few of the Carabao Cup games earlier in the year and wasn't, or the Conference League games, and it wasn't this cloud hanging over him where it felt like another player who was kind of being forced out of the club and leaving a sour taste in the mouth, especially for those who, care about the academy. This has been a positive resolution, and I really hope now that he's integrated into the first team because of the Reece James injury problem, because he looks very composed and there is clearly a lot of potential there in that player, and I hope he can develop into at least a squad role for the rest of this season, a bit like I've referenced him before, but I think it's a fair comparison, or just more tempering expectation and kind of being a bit more realistic. I think he could fulfill an Alfie Gilchrist type role this season, where he's asked to play maybe a few roles, but he's able to get some Premier League experience. He's able to get off the bench, maybe score a goal himself as Alfie did at the end of last season, and feel like a part of the first team. And maybe, different to Alfie, can actually stay in the first team heading into next year. So let me know your opinions on this, because it's nice he isn't leaving. It's nice it isn't potentially another one of those got away stories where he ends up at Bayern Munich and in a few years' time he's deemed to be one of the best fullbacks in Europe. So hopefully that development can happen at Stamford Bridge. The last thing I want to speak about is Chelsea's style of play. So there was a story, kind of an analysis and a tactical story in The Athletic about Chelsea not wanting to counter-attack, but they're very good at it. And I was really, struck by Chicago Dimitri, an account I definitely suggest you go and follow. People would have followed him on X, but I think he maybe is on both, but I don't check X as much as I used to. But he's definitely on Blue Sky, and he responds to, obviously, Chelsea news. And he was, I think does a lot of great analysis about Chelsea. And effectively, the premise of the piece, which I think is an interesting piece that I'll link below, looks at how Chelsea maybe are not attacking in the way they'd want to under Enzo Maresca, or kind of as it was sold in the summer, but they're doing it very effectively in a counter-attacking way, and especially with speed. And he brings up on Y-Scout, looking at kind of the most obvious examples. When you think of good counter-attacking moves for Chelsea this season, they're quite obvious ones, right? Sunday's goal for Nicholas Jackson was a great counter-attacking goal. The opening goal against Newcastle, where Palmer plays that ridiculous ball around the corner, then Pedro Neto squares it for Nicholas Jackson. The goal right at the start of the season against Crystal Palace. There were good counter-attacking moments against Wolves. So the obvious ones there. Chelsea's rate, in terms of numbers here, Chelsea's rate of 4.3 direct attacks per 90 in the Premier League this season is the highest in the division. Meanwhile, they are limiting the opponent's counter-attacks with only 2.1 direct attacks conceded per game, which is the best rate in the top flight. Another thing to note is that Chelsea's direct attacks numbers in the Premier League this season is their highest since 2018-19. Now, I want to go to what Chicago Dimitri said before I, give my thoughts on this. And he said, only a total idiot would avoid attacking unsettled defences for dogmatic reasons, and I do not believe Maresca is an idiot. There's a belief that if you utilise transitional opportunities, it means you can't control the game. This is false. We're one of the league leaders in long possessions. And then he brings up some numbers specifically around the Brentford game, which is the fact that we had 11 long build-up possessions, 85 percentile of all Premier League games in the last 3 years, which is, a high rate, and 12 fast break possessions, which is in the 95 percentile. This is very typical of how we played this season. I've extensively talked about this as being a real positive and a real pleasant surprise. Many pleasant surprises this year. Pleasant surprise Chelsea are close to the top of the Premier League before Christmas. But one of those is about style of play. The concerns we had that I don't think were unfair, because all we kind of had to go off with Maresca was his work at Leicester and also his work at Man City. So there wasn't a lot of evidence really, and that's the Leicester season was really the only thing you could look at. And he kind of felt like another coach, based on some of his own words as well, that he didn't like the idea of counter-attacks, that it was very slow, it was very dogmatic. It felt like dogmatic, right? And even what we saw during pre-season kind of felt like it was going in that direction, which made it quite concerning. However, very quickly it shifted, where Chelsea's attacking fluidity and aggression and speed that was, I think, well utilised in the main by Mauricio Pochettino has been evolved and made better rather than completely halting it. Now, my theory on this is that Maresca is just working with a much higher calibre of player and has realised that because I've got that luxury, there's no point trying to put these really rigid ideas and kind of system and structures in place when it could limit my ability to win games. And also just looking, as a good coach should, at the tools at his disposal and thinking, how can I best exploit them? Because Chelsea are a technically good team, but they're also a team that possess a lot of speed in the attack. Why would you not want to utilise that? And that is something that I think Chelsea have done consistently well this year, because when you've got the speed of Pedro Neto, Noni Madueke, Nicholas Jackson, especially if you're just looking at kind of a front three, and then you've got the movement, the genius of Cole Palmer, who can play ridiculous passes, you need to utilise that. The positioning of Palmer has been incredible this year in terms of how much freedom he's got. I've been stunned how much freedom he's got, but it's worked to Chelsea and Maresca's advantage. And I don't think that, if you are a Chelsea fan right now, I was having a discussion about this with someone who's not a Chelsea fan last night, and they were sort of saying at the end of the day, fans care about winning. And I agree in the main. Like, sure, the Sarri season maybe clashes up against this, because it wasn't like that was a dreadful season. Chelsea finished third in the Premier League and won the Europa League. So at times there can be a little bit of a conflict there. But this style of football very much feels in keeping with, if there is a Chelsea style, which I contest there really isn't, because I think that's what makes Chelsea quite a unique club. There's no kind of holistic kind of you have to play this way or not, because one of the things I think that makes Chelsea and has made Chelsea a very successful team is our chameleon kind of nature at our best. The great Mourinho teams were able, Conte as well, I think in his first season, Ancelotti too, there's flexibility. That team could fight you, that team could defend really rigidly and in a real structured way to limit space. They could hit you on the counter, they could overwhelm you with their attacking quality. They could do lots of things, and that's what I want from a Chelsea team. I want a functional, I want a flexible team. Of course, at the end of the day, you want to have some form of identity, or at least a belief that players are sticking to, and I think a set of principles that they can stand by and very much go on consistently. You can't be changing it week to week, but there's clearly tweaks that Maresca is making from opponent to opponent, whether he's going to a free back and he's moving Caicedo from right back into central midfield. And against Aston Villa, that worked a treat. Chelsea dominated that game and very much nullified Villa for the main, and we won that game in brilliant style. It was one of the most dominant Chelsea games I've seen in a long time. But then I think what's really encouraging is you're able to play that transitional football, you're able to feel like you're an intense team, and you're not a dogmatic, slow possession team just passing it around and boring everyone to death. But then defensively, we're able to stop those counter-attacking opportunities, which has been a real problem for Chelsea in a number of years. It shows me that Maresca has found a perfect balance within his team so far this year. It's a balance that is clearly preventing the midfield problems, especially. I mean, I think that clearly the elevation and performances of a player like Moises Caicedo has transformed that for Chelsea. He is a player that we did not have several years ago. The ground he covers, the interceptions he makes, but also players, as I spoke about the other day, Marco Correa, players who have very much elevated their games and makes Chelsea a much more combative team, aware team, street smart team. All of those things combined. I just want to hear your thoughts because we're only a few months really still into the Maresca era, and obviously it's gone so well. It's gone so much better than anyone anticipated. Do you think there's an evolution of this style, or is it, a case that if you keep on doing this, is there really any need to complain? The attack's productive. The defence could be better. We know there are defensive issues, but Chelsea are second in the league and they're not too far from the top. And it doesn't feel to me like this is a style that is miles away from where Chelsea want to be. They're actually, much closer than they probably anticipated to be at this point under Enzo Maresca already. So let me know your thoughts, because I like this style of play. I like that we are judging game state. That's one of the things that Postecoglou gets, a lot of criticism for, and I think rightly so. If you can't judge game state, I don't think you're a very good football team. If you can't judge when to hold off, when to press intensely, when you have to defend a little bit more rigidly, and you have to be a little bit more humble to the fact that maybe you're coming up against a team with threats that you have to counteract, or in games where you have to take a foothold, like against Brentford, you have to show the initiative, but you also have to have that balance. I think that is what has made Maresca's first period at Chelsea so impressive, is the tactical flexibility, and also looking at his group of players and going, all right, maybe I had these principles or ideas last year for Leicester, but there's no point implementing them because it might stifle the players that I have and very much stifle my ability to progress at Chelsea. So maybe you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments below. But that is it. I just want to quickly say I'm going to be unavailable to do a Shamrock review tomorrow. I'm quite busy going away for a couple of days before Christmas. I will be back though in time to do an Everton review. I won't be back in time to do an Everton preview, but I will give you my thoughts on Sunday following that Everton game, and then we'll be back for added time, and then we're into Christmas and the madness of all that. I've got some content lined up, but I just want to let you know if you're wondering where a Shamrock review is, it won't be coming. But I guess, if I'm going to miss a game this year, it probably isn't the most important game, is it? In terms of the last of the Conference League phase where Chelsea are qualified, it's going to be a heavily rotated team. Those are my thoughts. Please let me know yours in the comments below. Follow across the socials, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. And I will see you again very soon. All the best.